And now,
The Von Akron Show.
Hi, guys. It is just barely May 31st. This is the Von Akron Show number 21. It might be a short one, but I've been itching to get on and talk about things all day. And then Sarah sent me a message and some of the things that have been going on that affect her personally. So I think we'll just go ahead and get into it. Sarah, good. So were you working earlier today?
I was at work all day. I worked from 12 to like 10:30.
And before we get into all the chaos, I mean, things have been, from what my wife told me, things have been going fairly well, right?
Yeah, actually, we have been doing phenomenal business in terms of like carry out. People are starting to come back out to eat. It's going really well. It's a challenge to kind of adapt to the shift from dine-in mostly to more half and half carry out. Like it's like everything happens at once. Everybody is ordering at the exact same time. So it's definitely a challenge to try to adapt to that and make sure that we keep people happy.
Sure. No, I get that. So everything's, been getting back online. Businesses have been getting back to normal,
Forgive me,
slowly
I
but
did
surely.
work for 10 and a half hours. So I'm drinking a little bit now, but
That's okay. I've been working all day and I've been drinking a little bit too, for the last
yeah.
few hours. But at any rate, things are starting to get back to normal and things are going pretty good. And then a video surfaces. I think most people who don't live in a cave know what I'm talking about. There was another black guy, sort of murdered by the police. And I get there's a lot of anger about that. That's happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And there have been a lot of protests. Apparently, Minneapolis has basically been on fire for the last, since Wednesday. And it's Saturday, Sunday.
It might have been Tuesday. It might have been Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday, even like that, because the video broke Tuesday.
Okay, yeah.
Because it happened on Memorial Day.
So there's that going on there. I mean, let me just be real upfront about this. I haven't spoken about it because by the end of the show, you'll probably agree with me. I don't know that I have anything intelligent or interesting to add to this because it's so complicated, and no matter what I say, I'm going to piss somebody off, and that's fine. You can be pissed off at me, but like, I just don't want people to be pissed off at me for, just spouting off about, ideas I really haven't quite developed fully yet, because that seems like a ripoff to me and to them. But my general thoughts on this, and then we'll get into it, is that I understand the rage. I understand. Believe me, I understand all of the just the frustration that this has been going on forever. I mean, I used to beat this drum continuously. I used to belong to a bunch of groups who beat this drum continuously. I kind of just, I don't know. It just seemed like it wasn't going to end, and obviously it hasn't ended. So I totally get that. I understand protesting. Protesting, I think, I don't know exactly what the efficacy of protesting, at least nonviolent protesting, is. I don't know.
I don't think there's any efficacy with, I mean, not to say like, you have your, Million Man March and things that matter, but on the sideline of the things that were happening with Martin Luther King Jr., there was an entire movement with Malcolm X and the Black Panthers. There were other things happening, and even MLK, acknowledged that, while he was doing this, he was doing this nonviolent protesting and this movement, there sort of has to exist the other
Well,
side of things.
I suppose there does. And then even MLK, though, or excuse me, Malcolm X, like in his later years after his Hajj to Mecca, kind of came back with a different perspective on things before he was killed,
Mhm.
which is interesting as well. So, yeah, so nonviolent protests, I don't know what the efficacy is. I don't know that they actually get much done. And I'm not saying violent ones do. I'll get to that in a second here. But yeah, because look, you got your Colin Kaepernicks and folks like that have been protesting things, and they, they get mocked, and then you get so it's very convenient to just ignore nonviolent protests. They don't really,
Right.
or
And
let's say non-disruptive
just
protests.
just discredit or make fun of, or so many jokes about Kaepernick, about what he was doing, and how disrespectful is this, and and to kind of like downplay that, and seeing, okay, well, we didn't listen when people tried to do things the right way,
Hmm.
and now people are reacting in a way where it's like, okay, well, I
They're
mean,
reacting.
what the hell else are you supposed to do?
Well, okay, and so
I mean, and we're two white people.
absolutely.
You know what I mean? And that's, I think, like the biggest issue, not us talking, but I mean, like, it's like, how do you bring, like, I mean, I would love to actually bring, Black people into the dialogue,
Me
because
too.
and unfortunately, like, like we have like a homogenous existence where we can't do that.
To
You
some
know,
extent,
I
yeah.
mean, and it's like, and I was on somebody's Facebook post the other day, and like, and everybody was talking, arguing about, like, whether this was right or that was right, that they were doing in Minneapolis, and I said, you know, I, I was like, well, isn't it funny that's just a bunch of white people arguing about what Black people should do after a Black man is murdered by a white police officer?
Sure, sure. And again, I get that. I remember when everything went down with Trayvon Martin in Cleveland, and that was like kind of my next step of dialogue as far as protesting goes. So
Mhm.
obviously, I think obviously a lot of peaceful protesting, unless it's really massive, like really massive, doesn't do much.
Mhm.
So then there's the inconvenience protesting, and that's what occurred during the whole Trayvon Martin unfortunate issue in Cleveland. I worked there at the time, so folks were shutting down freeways and things like that.
Mhm.
It inconvenienced a lot of people. I
Mhm.
mean, being killed by the police, I guess, is a very
Being
inconvenient thing for
being
you.
killed in general is kind of
Being killed in
inconvenient.
general is a very inconvenient thing. So, like, I get the impetus for it, but even there, like, we see that it might be counterproductive. And look, I don't know what is a positive productive thing, but that
Mhm.
even that was kind of counterproductive. In a way it was great. In a way it was counterproductive because it just made people who just wanted to get to work, or that
View
ambulances just
negatively.
needed to
Yeah,
get to the hospital.
they're looking at things negatively.
Like,
And
I'm not involved with this. I'm on your side, but now I'm late for work, or I need to get home, or I need to
yeah.
get to this doctor's appointment for my kid, or whatever. So, I mean, it's always a double-edged sword. Now, granted, before we get to the next step in the sort of protesting spectrum, I will say that, like the recent protests with largely armed white people,
Mhm.
none of these groups are
That that
homogenous.
but that actually accomplished something.
That's what I'm saying. So that seemed to. So maybe if you show up and storm the gates and you're heavily armed and you're
But
peaceful,
they but they yeah,
but I don't think it would
I
work
think
out the same if the
uh,
demographics demographics were flipped.
I don't know. What would happen? What would happen if you had a large group of heavily armed black civilians in a peaceful protest? Like,
I don't know. I'd like to think
what would that look like?
I'd like to think that the same thing would happen, but
Where they're screaming in cops' faces.
Yeah, it seems like in the world we live in that wouldn't be the case. And I hear that argument all the time. But what if, from I don't know. Let's not even go down that rabbit hole. So sort of the third tier of protesting, and I'll even put protesting sort of in quotation marks now, is that you cause real economic harm to people. And when you cause economic harm, it causes people to pay attention. No doubt. Like, people are paying attention right now. You've got economic harm going on with, first it was like the police precinct in Minneapolis. I saw, photos from today with like cars torched in Cleveland. I heard stories today about bricks being thrown off of overpasses in Route 8. Like, so now we're actually even not, that's not just economic. That could potentially be life. That's violence. I mean, that could kill somebody.
Yeah.
So no shit, that catches attention. But again, even with the mild inconvenience of, like, let's call it the tier 2 of just disrupting traffic, you get negative attention there. You may not be accomplishing what you want. Now, when you start harming people who had nothing to do with it, I mean, I'm all for go burn down the government buildings. I didn't say that, NSA. But, like, if you're going to do that, I'm not going to be as upset.
No,
as long as there's nobody there.
I agree 100%. We should, like, if in terms of like the focus, like, if you want to burn down the courthouse, if you want to burn, well, unless it's a historical building, and then I have, then I have mixed feelings about that. No, because I mean,
no, I get that.
But again, that's a statement. Like, if you've ever seen V for Vendetta, when he blows up, the parliament,
he was a radical Catholic, I think, right?
No, I mean not Guy Fawkes himself, but V for Vendetta, the movie where he blew up Parliament after a totalitarian regime took over the UK. So, but again, perhaps destroying a historical building has an impact because the historical building is not representative of the people that are destroying it.
That's such a white people problem, Sarah.
Well, no,
about historical buildings. I'm just kidding, and that was insensitive for me.
You're fine, but no, I mean, I get what you're saying. So it's like this building might have some significance historically, but not to the people that are destroying it, and that's
like
fine.
The federal building in Akron is a totally ugly, brutalist architecture piece of shit. But
if you're destroying a courthouse that has existed for hundreds of years and continually decided in favor of imprisoning black people,
sure,
burn it the fuck down.
Go for it.
It might be a historical building,
guess.
But it's like people. It's the preservation of plantations. I mean, at a certain point, like, cool, that's our history, but like, do we need to keep those buildings in existence?
Well, and let me clarify this too. When I say I would be less upset about people burning down government buildings, again, I'm not saying I condone that. And B, I think that, well, I know that, whenever you destroy something that quote unquote belongs to the government, you're actually fucking everybody. I mean, you're fucking your fellow citizens. I mean, we got to pay for that shit.
Dirk's up in here.
Oh, I didn't even see him. Well, again, I don't have this. I don't have the comments.
He said, "What do you make of the reports that apparently some white supremacists?" He's talking about the agent provocateurs.
Yeah, and that happened. That seems to happen every single time too. And going back to that point that I made earlier, though, it's like when destroying all this, this property, whether it's government or private property, or whether it's a chain store or a mom and pop store. I mean, people are going to be hurt by this
Well, you saw that.
economically.
Have you seen like the videos of the dude breaking out the
Yes.
windows at AutoZone, and they
Yes.
and that. Okay, so I'm not really like in favor of like looking. So how Facebook will remove things and YouTube will remove things if they view them if they determine independently that they're inaccurate. The only reason that has been disproven, like on Snopes and stuff, as far as whether that was actually the St. Paul police officer that they think it was
that
because
was based off of a statement by the St. Paul Police Department.
Right. Exactly. The St. Paul Police Department literally said, "Oh, that wasn't him."
No, we didn't do it. It's not me.
But okay. Well, it kind of looks like him. His ex-wife said it was him, so.
Yeah, and maybe they're right. Who knows? But it was a white dude doing it, and he like almost got in a fight with the
one that wanted to put his blunt. He wanted to put. He's hold my blunt.
Yeah, that dude, and like, don't do this. So
yeah,
I think that if I was involved in this, and maybe I should be, but I'm not, and I'm not going to be. I'll be honest with you, but like, I think they should be like cracking down and beating asses of everybody who's like doing that, because it does discredit whatever cause it is.
Self-policing, basically.
Self-policing, absolutely. So somebody starts going and like throwing Molotov cocktails into like private businesses or whatever.
I mean, they kind of tried to do that, but then he was like, "I will punch you."
Well, then punch him back. I don't know. I'm not. I'm not there. But
he was holding an entire pizza from Little Caesars, so like. He didn't want to lose that $5 hot and ready.
Well, don't they have that insurance on it? Or was that another? It was Domino's or somebody. Anyway.
Oh, I think it was his own pizza, though.
Dude, I dropped it because I got in a fight with somebody. But you know what? To Dirk's point, too, though. I mean, agent provocateurs, it does. Okay, so maybe that guy wasn't a police officer. And I hate to think that they were doing that. Who knows?
Yeah.
I'd hate to think they were. But this is a prime opportunity because of those forces, like we just discussed, where it goes against the cause if things get out of hand and things start going crazy.
Which they keep doing.
So it makes sense that like white supremacist groups, folks who would just be completely opposed to this, might go in and throw a little gasoline on the fire and accelerate.
Yeah. I think the problem is that the public, I don't know, like, and even me, like, when I think about it, I'm like, is anybody really that fucking, I don't know, not twisted, but like, is anybody really like that, like, involved? Yeah. They are like they have nothing better to do than like go try to downplay a social movement. Like,
no, there are definitely people like that. There was Charles Manson in 1969. There are it's not millions, it's not even tens of thousands. It's probably like 1,000 to a couple thousand folks out there that are like real hardcore helter skelter folks, and they just want to see that falling apart of society and the race wars and everything come to fruition. And the internet like lets everybody connect too. So like, and apparently there was chatter about like doing this exact thing
of actually like infiltrating the protests.
Yeah. So, but with that said, and this is all unsubstantiated, I've heard things, so could be completely wrong. This is not the news. This is opinion. But with that said, it's like, what did everybody's grandmother tell them? It's like, if everybody jumped off a bridge, would you do it too? So you still have some culpability if, an agent provocateur started something, but you continued it, you're, ethically and morally responsible for that. Now,
hold on, I have to stop because you're not reading the comments. So Brad Jones says, the next time one of my family members is done wrong with death, I'm going to Yelp to find out which local businesses are worth burning down.
Well, yeah, the ones with the lowest reviews or the highest reviews. I don't know.
I don't know, lucrative or barely
I done been
surviving.
wronged by Auto Mart down the street.
Yeah.
Um.
Steve's car repair. Mm-mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, like, but then there's also I mean, this is so freaking complex, and that's why I don't have a strong opinion about it
But
one way or the other.
it's obviously not all agent provocateurs, because like
No.
I posted what I posted about what's happening in downtown Cleveland, and clearly the people that were inside looting the Gateway Waking Lizard
Oh yeah.
we're not. I mean, that's opportunism. So that's like a whole other thing that you have people that are inciting violence, but then you also have people that are, I don't know if they're viewing it as an opportunity
Well,
to
yeah.
steal, basically. But again, I don't know if that's what it is, because I don't know.
I'm sure
I
it
was
is.
It is and it isn't, but I was reading. So are you familiar with James Baldwin? Black
No.
author. Okay, well, he was very prominent in the 1960s. He was a essayist, author, and social activist. Um, and he was asked in 1968 by Esquire magazine what he thought about looters, because there was a lot going on, obviously, in
Hmm.
1968. And he basically said, what happened? What do you expect to happen when you take someone and you place them into a location and you take away all of their resources, and they are there and they're not actually taking something because they need it. They just want you to know that they exist. And
I
I mean, it was like is looting itself a form of expression, or is it
no.
simply for
No. Look,
personal? I mean,
I respect. I'm sure that guy that you were just referencing. Like, I'm sure I'd respect him, and a lot of his writing is probably awesome. But I think that, like, let's just be real for a second. That sounds like straight up like rationalization. I don't think that
hold on,
anybody.
hold on. I got it. He said, he said, so the question was, how would you define somebody who smashes in the window of a television store and takes what he wants? That was the question. He said,
Mhm.
and forgive it, he refers to people as cats because it was the 60s.
Yeah,
Um, you
these
know,
cats. These
yeah,
cats.
he said, before I get to that, how would you define somebody who puts a cat where he is and takes all the money out of the ghetto where he makes it? Who is looting whom? Grabbing off the TV set? He doesn't really want the TV set. He's saying, screw you. It's just judgment, by the way, on the value of the TV set. He doesn't want it. He wants to let you know he's there. The question I'm trying to raise is a very serious question. The mass media, television, and all the major news agencies endlessly use the word looter. On television, you always see black hands reaching in. And so the American public concludes that these savages are trying to steal everything from us. And no one has seriously tried to get where the trouble is. After all, you're accusing a captive population who has been robbed everything of looting. I think it's obscene.
Okay, so that that gives an overarching sort of sociological background to it.
Hmm.
And I can maybe buy that. I mean, I get that, okay? But like today, right now,
Yeah.
I don't think that, like, literally people who are stealing TVs are going through that thought process. I think
Yeah.
90%, 99% of people aren't, like, following that. They're just like, free shit. Let me go grab it. Like,
Yeah.
that's how,
I mean,
and
I
that's,
I watched people loot our liquor cabinet and go,
mm,
literally dismount televisions off the walls. It's 100% opportunism.
mhm.
Um, but at the same time, like, would that? What are you doing over here? Sorry, I got distracted. I don't know. George is bothering me. I, at the same time, like, I don't know. I feel like the mentality is something that neither you nor I could ever comprehend.
Yeah, and so again,
We're
that's it.
we're more
That's why I'm not an.
we're suburban. Like
I'm a
you know.
suburban spectator here. Like I really don't understand it, and I'll be the first to admit that. Um, but one of the other complicating factors I was going to mention too is just it's the psychology of the crowd, which is very much different than the psychology of individuals involved. Um, Gustave Le Bon, I believe, was sort of a pioneer in that field back in the late 1800s. Wrote a really good book about the psychology of the crowd. I wish I could recall exact quotes out of that off the top of my head right now, but it's been a while since I read it. But essentially, the, the crowd brings out the worst in people,
Mm-hmm.
and it also makes people do things that are even like insane and dangerous
Mm-hmm.
because they feel that they're part of something greater than themselves.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it gives license for people to do insane shit that they wouldn't normally do, for themselves. I mean, it's just a whole nother animal. I'm nervous and skeptical, and I just don't like crowds, like wild mobs. Like it freaks me out.
Yeah.
Maybe it's some sort of genetic memory or something, but I don't like that sort of thing. But that plays into it too, and that's not. None of this is, none of these characteristics are racial either. I mean, the psychology of crowds, this goes back millennia. This happens with anybody. So this is not some sort of stereotyping
Yeah.
of, as the president said, thugs, right?
Yeah.
You start looting, you
Animals.
start shooting, right?
Yeah, animals.
That
Thugs.
was a poor choice of words. Then he doubled down on it.
I mean, shit. I mean, when the hurricanes happened down, Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Rita,
Yeah.
and people were looting, and literally you saw the news headlines where it was kind of like, oh, you are obtaining food from a closed store versus looting, and it was like a totally different language in terms of how to describe people. You don't describe white people as thugs, you don't describe white people as animals.
Well, it depends on which side you come at it from,
I
because
think, yeah, I mean,
there are sources that describe poor, lesser educated, rural white folk as all the worst things in the world, and that's still written in print. So I get it, and I guess that kind of just feeds into the situation we're in right now. I think we just all need to fucking listen to each other a little bit more and stop being so goddamn elitist and just try to find what you can relate to people about rather than what your tribal signifiers are to hate somebody. And I don't know, this whole thing's such a mess, Sarah, and especially like you said, coming out of the whole COVID thing, like businesses are just trying to get back on their feet.
yeah, I mean, the gateway location had not even been reopened yet, and actually that's probably a blessing because they did not have as much stock. They hadn't been ordering things, and it was actually like better because they
A
didn't
better
have as
time.
much. They
Right.
didn't have the product in, but like that. I mean, they literally were removing all of the televisions from the walls. Like, I mean,
I saw the pictures you posted.
down. Well, it was videos. They were watching.
Yeah.
One of our owners, Jim, it was his wife that posted it. They were literally sitting there on their phone because they have it like the streaming of um the security cameras on their phone, and they're literally watching people come into their business and rip
Yeah.
TVs off the wall and break into the liquor cabinet. And I mean, it wasn't for a purpose. Like it's just, I mean, like we already said, it's opportunism, but then
Yeah.
also we just can't
Opportunistic.
we can't fully comprehend the entire picture because that's not what we know.
No, it's not. And it's very early. This stuff is still happening too. And
Yeah.
who knows what, there's so much we don't know. But you know, the other kind of question, like, I guess, ethical question I have is that, you know, for folks who do, and I'm not saying you're wrong or right, I've made my opinion known, but you know, for folks who do condone this sort of destruction of private property, and you know, even I hope nobody condones potential, you know, violence towards people and threats to life. I mean,
No.
I take a stand right there. I mean, I can't condone that. Period.
No.
Like,
No.
that's a hard line for me.
No,
But
but property is
sure. So property. So with that in mind, if you condone that, what if you were a business owner? Now, this happened during the Rodney King riots in 1994, which I remember watching on television. But what about
absolutely.
what's the ethical line for folks then who stand and defend their place of business? Should somebody just sacrifice their business in solidarity with your movement if you believe that is the way to conduct forwarding your movement, or are they justified in defending it? And what comes to mind is the Korean grocers during the Rodney King riots, who sat up on their roofs with their old like World War II Korean War rifles and like defended their places of business. I don't blame them one bit.
I mean, I think that's fair. George actually raised the point. He's like, is it legal to put lethal booby traps in your place of business? It's not.
It is not. No.
Oh, you have to get sued. Oh, it's the same. It's a story of like
the
burglar breaking in, and he breaks
there's no
the
law
leg
against
and then
it.
He sues you.
There's no law against it, but like when that goes to court, what's been found in the past, and I'm not a lawyer, but I play one on TV, but like there's the liability, like when you're intending to inflict grievous harm on somebody who gets in, it's easy to make the argument, well, what if that was not a malicious entry, or
it's like a law enforcement officer.
Sure. So it's easy to make that argument. Although I don't know that I agree with that. Like, if you don't belong in my place, you don't fucking belong in my place, right?
Or you could literally post something on.
Oh wait, hold on. I think we have another guest here.
I know. I posted the link. Who's joining?
Oh sweet. Hey, Chris.
He's here.
How's it going, man?
He's here to stir the shit pot. That's what he's
doing. Let's do
that. I'm world renowned, apparently.
Yeah, you are.
I missed a few things on the way in, though, so I was trying to figure out how the browser worked and what have you. But I've been very interested in the show, and Colin saying, "Well, stop typing and say something if you want to." So I figured if y'all invited me aboard, I'd be all right with that. But
absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, one thing I was tagging on to was the when does it become violent and when is that okay? Because I mean, we have a lot of people that feel disenfranchised. They feel so separated from society, and they're crying out. They want to be heard. And then you have this other mindset that like, well, you're taking things away from people. You're taking from your fellow man. You're destroying your neighborhood. You're causing problems. You're hurting people. And they're saying, well, no one's dying, no one's life is ending. But I mean,
you're throwing bricks off an overpass on Route 8. I mean,
I was out on the highway during that. I think that could have hit me right off my motorcycle. I would not be home taking care of my family or seeing my daughter tonight if that was me. I mean, I saw something. I don't know if it was a fire or a car on fire or what it was, but the entire interstate of 76 was blocked off around 8:30, and a lot of people on the road, fire trucks. And I had something emergency related on the other side of town I had to go take care of. So, that was stopping me. And I'm not saying my priorities are higher than anybody else's. They want to be heard. I understand that.
Sure.
But when people start getting hurt, and whether it's emotional damage, physical damage, financial damage. I mean, we just got out of this pandemic situation where businesses are trying to recover, and you guys touched on, the winking lizard video.
Yeah,
we saw that.
we literally just reopened 2 weeks ago. The Gateway location has not even been reopened. We've been closed for 2 months, with no revenue. We're trying to bring back employees, trying to get back on our feet, and they ransacked the liquor. They stole TVs off the wall, and thankfully, it wasn't stocked. There hadn't been any orders done, but like a lot was taken, and that's like, and I don't even know what the damage looks like just by what was taken. It was a lot, and it's like, at what point, like, should there be like rules about rioting? Like, don't go here, but here's okay. Like, I mean, how can you get your point across without causing harm to people that are not involved?
Well, it seems pretty fucking straightforward. Just don't do harm and don't. I mean, that would be number one rule, right? But
and you know what, like violence. If you protest something, and this is a touchy subject for me, because you could get into something where violence has to be pushed back with violence. There are times when that has to happen. I mean,
certainly,
our country's built off it. A lot of people are going to say that's why we have problems. Well, I mean, how long do you get pushed around before you push back? However, we're talking about an innocent man who was murdered by an institutional government force. Okay. Yep. You touched on it earlier. Burn a state house, flip a cop car, not advocating it, but also not against it in that respect.
No, that's
Go
fair
to
game.
what you're mad at. Go to what you're mad at. What did the winking lizard do? Now I've heard the argument. Well, I mean, obviously, but I've heard the argument.
It's part of capitalist society, which
gosh, we're all earning a living here. Again, we had. I don't want to get too far off the path that I was going with here, but
sure.
Can you hit that light?
Oh, why? I was like, why is your light turned on?
TV went into sleep mode.
Okay.
So, but look at so we talked about the East 4th stretch in Cleveland. We talked about what happened to some of the businesses there, the Winking Lizard. Did y'all see what happened with the Colossal Cupcake? It's a total loss. The pictures are devastating.
No.
And I don't know. I've been in there a few times. I've talked to the people that work there. I don't know if it's a franchise or whatever.
Wait, where is that?
It's right there on East 4th, right there by House of Blues. And
okay.
I mean, in Columbus, I was watching the videos as it was going on, and I saw white kids climbing poles with skateboards to smash streetlights. They were smashing. I'm from Cleveland, so I call them RTA booths. I don't know what they call it, what their transit is down in Columbus, but they're smashing things with. They're laughing. They're just breaking things. They're enjoying themselves, and that's that. That's
opportunistic.
It is. It's that fuck shit up mentality that a lot of us maybe grew up in, and we all were like, oh yeah,
sure.
But I saw it coming even on social media. People were talking. They were like, oh,
let's go to Cleveland and go fuck shit up.
It's going to go down tonight. Who's with me? You say that you're going there with full intention, not because you care about George Floyd or his family. No. I mean, that is nothing to do.
Look, just grow the fuck up. I mean, when I was a teenager, I had the same mentality. Let me go smash shit, right? But I fully expected and had the wrath of my actions brought down on me, because I'm not supposed to do that shit, right?
No.
So just grow the fuck up. Like, you can't be a child forever. So for those people who are opportunistic, like what you were just talking about, I mean, I got no sympathy. Like, hit them with a fucking rubber bullet. Hit them with whatever bullet. I don't.
I think the problem is lack of community. It's lack of sense of community. Like, if everyone felt like they needed to protect their community and the businesses in it, and to preserve that, and they actually cared about where they live, then you wouldn't see that. But also, you have people coming in from outside, so it's
oh yeah,
and that's not helping anything. I mean, we're talking about conspiracy-minded sleeper cell groups, terrorist organizations. cops on payrolls. Of course,
Sure.
you're going to hear the Antifa, George Soros connection mindsets and things like that.
Yeah.
At what point, though, does it stop? It's sounding so wild. I mean, we saw this dude walking around in all black, and it turns out, he got an umbrella. I mean, he looks goofy. He sticks out like a sore thumb, but he's trying to keep his identity sealed up. I mean, he got outed. We know the name. We know who he's affiliated with.
Yeah. Oh, but St. Paul PD said, no,
it's not him.
Of course they did. They're going to protect
it
their
wasn't
own.
him.
I mean, that's what they do.
It wasn't him. And now they're like, oh, well, since St. Paul PD said it wasn't him, now if you try to post something about it or you want to like say anything,
censorship.
Yeah, Snopes like, oh no. St. Paul PD came out and said it wasn't him. And then even people are asking for like his geo data or whatever, to prove his location. But it's like pointless because then you can be like, oh, he was on loan from St. Paul.
And either way, whether it puts him there or not, you have a very blatant video of people dressed very similar. The blacked out individuals. Antifa as a group, which is not an organized group. A lot of people fail to realize.
No, it's not.
More so,
there's no president of Antifa.
It's an idea. It's an ideology.
Yes.
Sure.
And so you're going to see different practices from different places. Antifa Ohio versus Antifa, Georgia, they're going to act differently. They may or may not work together. They may or may, and maybe they're smarter than I give them credit for, which is not very much. Whatever. I'm speaking freely here. To me, it's sloppy, but it's also instigate. It's meant to instigate. That's what they do. And when you see people in blackface, not the blackface, but I mean, color.
I was like, what?
Well, that is meant to instigate as well.
That'll instigate too. We know where that goes too. But
that'll cause some fucking problems.
When you see people blacking out, putting the black bandanas over their mouths, blacking
black
out
umbrella.
Everything. Yeah. When you see that, and you see groups of those people, that's an old anarchist trick. That's an old go in, don't be seen, don't be identified, and go to town, do it. And
I mean, he knocked out the windows and then he literally just dipped out.
Yeah.
Oh, he did. I have to admire the way he broke those windows too, because that was pretty sweet.
He
was
like
tap 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 tap.
Just walk by like nothing's happening. But that's the point. But right around the same time, there were people stacking, pallets.
Oh yeah, I saw that picture
shopping
too. Yeah.
carts
That was a bunch
right
of
outside the Target.
It was like a bunch of like white teenagers, though. It looked like.
And it's funny because the reasoning behind the destruction, I've been unfortunately battling it out with people I care deeply for. And I'm not trying to be a jerk to anybody when I say this, and I'm not trying to belittle a cause in any way, shape, or form, but an innocent man died. Now, you could say an innocent man was killed by, police, or killed by bad police, or all police are bastards, or whatever, however you want to look at it.
Or killed by just a sociopathic asshole.
And those become police as much as they become lawyers, as much as they become businessmen, as much as they become construction workers. People are losing their shit these days.
But there's also the systemic problem. And also construction workers aren't issued a badge and a gun to do whatever they want.
Well,
a nail gun. Yeah, they get a nail gun. But I think that's the problem. It's like, you have that in every job. You will have those sociopaths, but give them the power and the weapon, and
then you have a problem.
Then you have a problem.
That's where I was going with that, is that the problem that we run into is, again, you can look at it as the way that, a black man, a man of color, a minority was targeted by racist police. Or you can look at it as a fellow human being was murdered. What are we going to do about it? You can look at it both ways. But when you look at it, I was just reviewing a lot of stuff that's happened recently, and we had the Tamir Rice was the kid's name that got shot up in Cleveland. But does anybody remember the name of that kid that was walking out of a gas station? The cops misidentified him. He was white. He had his Walkman on. He had his earpieces in. They walked right up behind him. They shot him like 3 times in the back, and he ended up dying. They're cuffing him while he's bleeding, telling him to stop resisting. And he's got bullet holes in him, and he just couldn't hear the orders. He walked out the door, made a left, got shot because he did not take his hands out of his pocket. And we've heard the argument, do what the cops tell you, don't resist, just go with the flow. You can have your day in court. Not if you don't make it to court. But this was a white kid. He didn't make the
Right.
headlines. You know, it showed up in different shows later when the families reopened the cases. And then I don't know if you all saw that. I wish I had names because I feel just as bad as everybody else. It's like, oh, these people are faceless. Like, we're all going to remember George Floyd, good or bad. We're going to remember that name. But I can't tell you the name of the kid that was in that hotel on his knees. And the cops kept saying, crawl towards me, keep your hands up. If you put your hands anywhere near your waist or behind your back or anything or on the floor, if you drop your hands, I will kill you. He's like, please, officer, I'm listening. Please don't shoot me. Please don't shoot me. This is another case of hands up, don't shoot.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a forgotten white guy. And, you know, then there was, you know, a couple black cops that have killed, you know, women, a couple of black cops that have killed white people, a couple black cops have shaken up and killed black people. The common denominator in all this is rogue police officers. As you said, it's the people that have this mental disturbances, this sociopathic mindset, and you give them the gun and the badge. And then you give them the fraternity. When they screw up, the rest of everybody comes to, well, we got to take care of our own. And I get that. I understand.
Absolutely.
Chris, I think the central issue, and I don't think anybody should be killed without cause, but I think the central issue is simply just statistical, which is the number of unarmed Black people that are killed versus the number of unarmed white people, and the fact that the Black population is significantly less than the white population, the fact that they are killed more frequently,
proportionately, definitely.
I mean, no, not even proportionally. It's not even percentage. It's not even a percentage issue.
Oh,
More unarmed Black people are killed by police than unarmed white people, even though Black people only comprise about 25%, I think, of the population. So just looking at it in terms of the number of people that have been killed, I mean, it's insane.
So getting to the crux of the issue real quick. I mean, and geez, another person dies, right? Like earlier in the show, I was talking about what happened in Cleveland, and I said Trayvon Martin, and that was actually Tamir Rice. So I'm even getting things confused. I'm sorry. So everybody, I'm sorry for saying that. But
so many. Actually, I think Kellyanne, I think Jake's girlfriend is watching this, and she actually posted something where she listed all of the Black people that had been killed that were not resisting arrest in the past 5 years, and it was something it's astronomical.
Totally fucked up. But
what was his name? I'll figure it out.
But
isn't that fucked up that I can't even it's like at this point you're looking
but
at a
that's
list
where we're at. But at the end of the day, at the end of the day, what is the goal here, right? So what is the goal? And I think the goal, look, my brother is a police officer, and I've told him,
I saw Kara brought that up
a million times, and he's a awesome, good dude. And I'm not just saying that because he's my brother. I guess it's all subjective. I can subjectively, and I think objectively say that.
Philando Cruz, that was what it was.
Oh, there you go.
Philando Castile was shot. He admitted that he had a concealed carry. He had a permit for the gun that he had.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And they still shot him in his car.
Yeah, I remember that one. That was covered in Reason or something. But
the lawyer is representing the George Floyd family. Actually.
But what the end goal is, though, is to have this not happen anymore. Is that not the I think that that's what people want. Is
that would be awesome.
Not have this happen anymore. So how do you get to that?
You're good.
Well, one thing I wanted to add to what I was saying about this, where Sarah's jumping in with the statistics and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is when you see it, it is a disproportion because the numbers are close. And a lot of people like to use that one chart that they see year by year by year, where it shows more white people by number got shot and killed in police related stops that turned out there was no need for that. Just people that were shot and killed by police. But again, we're talking about a population of generalized white people that take up an enormous amount of this country, whereas Black people are disproportionately recognized in that type of a charting. But when you look at this, the one thing, the common denominator that I was getting at with my comments earlier was the police. These people that are murdering innocent people, which is why everyone should feel moved, not just it is right now. It is the Black people's protest. It is their right to be angry. It is their right to have a movement, their right to gather, their right to protest. It's nobody's right to react violently. You're protesting violence, and you're throwing bricks off overpasses. You're burning down businesses.
And violence begets violence. Yeah.
And it's just going to build up. I mean, the angry mob mentality just generates this energy of itself. I might be standing next to you. You suggest something that I think is totally outlandish, but then we see 5 people getting away with it. I might be like, to hell with it. Let's go do it. It's fun. I'm thinking about this a little differently.
Yeah, I could see you and Nick doing that, actually.
Yeah, let's shoot some bottle rockets at these people.
We'll be throwing M80s, and then we'll be playing with rocket power grenades before you know it. It'll just build up.
Yeah, I wish. No, anyway.
But at the end, I think everybody wants to see the officers. I'm going to stress this because some people see that picture, but there was
it's the people that stood by.
Yeah, and then they got this other guy. Like, there's no to see here people. There was 4 people actively involved in destroying this man's life, to kill him, to take away everything he could ever be, and that's a big deal. But he's getting a 3rd-degree murder charge, which
only exists in like 3 states.
And that's a mild charge when you think about it. I mean,
very mild.
This guy should be getting a 1st-degree, and I'm not going to say it's anything more than my opinion, but he should get a 1st-degree murder charge, and then the other guy should at least get some sort of conspiracy to commit murder charge on top of it. And then I think that's what's enraging everyone so much right now is everybody's like, even before the riots, even before all the damage, they were going to arrest this guy. It takes time. You got to gather a case. You got to gather evidence.
You got to make a case. You got
to pick the guy up.
And they gathered it for it to be a 3rd-degree murder charge.
Well, you got to build a case that you can win, though, too.
Yes, and here's the thing.
Yeah,
is now that they've done that, I don't think that the rioting is why he's going to jail, because the media was already all over this and about how disgusting it was, and everyone was already disgusted when this was getting going. He was already on his way to being arrested, so justice was already in the motion. I don't have the biggest faith in the justice system, but I know it's put in certain ways to work so that people don't get totally screwed, but a lot of people do. A lot of people,
or innocent people, get totally screwed, but that's a whole nother show.
Oh, that's fine. They get let off after like 20 years. It's fine.
Well, small business owners locked up for violating COVID-19 stuff, while long-term felons are being let go because somehow they're having problems with the prisons.
At risk. Oh, they have asthma. Let them out.
Yeah, well, to lock up the guy that tried to just, make a living. Makes sense. But, the problem that we're running into is people want to see law enforcement change. They want to see, the people screaming all lives matters, because they want everyone to be respected, because they're not part of one of those small niches, but they want to be included. And then you have these small niches that, as you said, are disproportionately affected by this. I mean, they are targeted, and it's because of stigmas. Now, does rioting and looting change a stigma? No, it hurts your cause, and people are going to remember the name George Floyd. But why? Why are they going to remember? Are going to be like me that remembers that was?
It's going to be like the Rodney King riots, like
because you killed my kid with a brick through the window.
Yeah, it's going to be a negative. It's going to be a negativity.
It could get real ugly. So at the end of the day, though, so policing needs to change, and there are ways to do that. I think that some impediments to that right now are. And I don't blame them for having a really strong union, but that might be part of it.
Oh, they have a very strong union.
And I think that
I've worked for them.
People need to be held accountable, because it leads to the situation where even if you're a good guy, like, you don't want to step out of line and get beat down by everybody else in your department because you reported something about one guy and nobody else is going to back you up. I mean, like, people really have to be held accountable.
If you've watched any investigative shows, police shows, I mean, I'm literally talking like if you've watched any Law and Order or whatever it is, if there's some sort of like IB investigation, like that is actually real. Like the way that they protect their own is real.
And like, I touched on that earlier. That's that fraternity. That's the fraternal
order of police. It's real.
and they don't turn on each other. And that's a big thing, is that they'll help you find your way out. And their job is to learn the laws enough to to put together enough to bring someone in to go before the courts. And that's really all it is. It's to observe and to allow the system to take care of it. But they all too often not trained well enough, not evaluated well enough. Maybe they're a little too jumpy. Maybe they're a little too panicky. Maybe they have some PTSD. Maybe I'm not there. I'm not the one doing these evaluations, but I know enough people in law enforcement that it's gotten to a point where, people are saying, like, the training is nothing, the this or the that. It happens too quickly. They're not screening people properly.
Absolutely.
I don't know, but I've heard enough references to it to think, well, maybe there's something to this, because we're seeing more and more patterns. Now, is it becoming more prevalent, or has it always been there and we just now have high-speed internet? We have cameras everywhere.
I think those things
I
compound.
was actually hired by the Ohio Highway Patrol. So if they hire me, they're like, you want to come into Columbus for training? So if that says anything about whether somebody should be driving around in a cruiser or whatever they're doing, they're like, yeah, your tattoos are fine and you seem kind of smart.
No, it's
setting the bar where the bar lands, depending what they need.
You want $50,000 a year and you can come work for us. Just do a couple weeks of training.
These issues are compounding, though. I mean, there's social media. There's everything's compounding in unfortunately a negative way. But like you said, Chris, training, I think, really can make a difference. I watched a documentary on HBO or something a couple months ago, and it was about it was in San Antonio, Houston, somewhere in Texas, and there was a group there that was kind of piloting the idea of dealing with people who have mental issues, which oftentimes when police meet somebody with mental issues, somebody ends up dead and it's not the police, right? And then also, the drug war. I mean, that's something you could do, like training, you could fix that gradually. The drug war, we could end that tomorrow with a flick of a pen. I mean,
they don't want to. It generates revenue.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's politics.
And what you're doing then is you're turning police officers who, I think, like I said, my brother is one. I think his heart's in the right place. He wants to do good. He actually quit a really good corporate job just to be a full-time cop because he wants to do good. But what you're doing then, what the state, the legislature, the government is doing is you're turning people who, some just want to be bullies, don't get me wrong, but you're turning even the people that want to be good folks, you're turning them into revenue collectors rather than people who actually help folks. And that just sucks.
Like sitting on the side of the highway and
revenue collectors.
That's extortion. That's a road pirate.
I think most of them actually got into things for the right reason, and I think most of them still want to do the right thing, but unfortunately they don't want to break ranks to say something different. And that's what I've seen. I don't see police officers speaking out against fellow police officers.
It's few and far between.
That's an awesome union you have there, but at the same time, it's almost like it's a gang. That is a gang where you don't break ranks, where you don't.
It's airtight. You hear
Absolutely
that a lot.
Airtight.
I mean, you know that I'm one of those people that has said it before, and it's people get into this locked down thing with the people they care about. I ain't snitching.
Well, Chris, you're in a biker group, right?
I'm a member of a motorcycle club. Yes.
Motorcycle club. So yes. What's your feeling like if somebody did something really messed up?
Would you take care of your own?
Would you take care of your own, or would you would you hold rank, or would you do something different?
I mean, we have our own ways of handling things in that culture. and different groups are going to say different things to that. I'm really not one that likes to talk much about my club's business. I will put right out in the open. Well, it's fine. But one thing I will speak freely on is we're a law-abiding motorcycle club. Strictly. We don't allow any kind of shenanigans that puts other people in harm's way.
So self-policing.
We do self-police, and a lot of times it's policing our own to make sure that we are representing our communities and our club and our patch and everything that we have in the most positive light possible. Now, the brotherhood, the fraternity, if I found out at 2 a.m. that something needed to happen, that I needed to go take care of somebody, flat tire, a house got broken into, family emergency, the simple stuff that we can all agree that a family member we would drop all things for if we cared.
Absolutely.
Now, in our group, it's like that. I mean, I have had to call upon my brothers, and they've had to call upon me, and we take care of each other.
What if somebody was in trouble with law enforcement and they were in the wrong?
If I was there and I was being questioned, nothing. You get nothing from me.
What if they called upon you to help them?
We have our rights, and I have the right to button my lip. You don't talk. You don't talk. You get your day in court. You know, I've had, and unfortunately, there's a negative stigma about motorcycle clubs. I
wasn't looking at negatively.
No. But something I want to share where some people are like, oh, you can't relate to certain things. And I don't mean to belittle anyone's experiences as a minority. I don't know what it's like to be a dark-skinned individual.
And that's kind of what we were talking about earlier. Like me and Nico, we're like,
I have no fucking clue.
The closest thing that I can liken it to is being out on a road in a podunk town, middle of nowhere, maybe not even in your state. And I'm riding, and they profile me, pull me over, and all of a sudden, even though I'm a Second Amendment, very outspoken individual for that. I have a concealed carry license.
Yeah, me too.
I can hear Colleen laughing.
But I'm completely legal. What I don't appreciate seeing is, again, people that even have the permit. You mentioned the gentleman that had the permit and he ended up dying anyways.
Yeah. Right. He literally said, I have a weapon in the car. And they were like,
I know what that's like, because on 2 occasions, once when I was an Uber driver, it had nothing to do with the motorcycle community. I was making extra side cash after the tattoo shop I worked for burned down. I was in just outside of Maslin, Canal Fulton area. I got pulled over. And you're not even supposed to carry a weapon when you're an Uber driver, but I'll tell you what, you should. The world's a scary place.
Dude, I wouldn't blame you.
As soon as that officer found out there was 2 drunk people, he had to see my phone. He saw the app. He was kind of confused at first. And then I mentioned, and listen, it's my duty to let you know that I have a firearm, because that's how the law is presented. You have to disclose that to the police officer, at least you used to.
Yeah.
And I was stopped with
not anymore, but yeah.
You really should.
You should.
Best practice. This is
another reason for the lesson learned about why you comply. And I hate to say that because I'm not really a compliance kind of guy, but I like staying alive, especially since my daughter's
Me too, dude.
graced my
totally
life.
Get you. Yeah.
He ends up having me come out of the car because I simply said, look, he's like, I need to see the gun. I said, you don't need to see the gun. You need to see my license, registration. I'm not going to reach for anything without your permission. My wallet's on one side, my gun's on the other. He's like, well, I'd feel more comfortable if you stepped out of the car. And I said, I don't believe I have to do that, but I'll do it to be compliant. Got out of the car. And he immediately tells me, put my hands up on my head, get down on my knees. And he draws his weapon. Now I got a gun pointed to my back. While this officer is calling the information. Yeah, he said he had a gun. Doesn't say anything about my CCW, doesn't say anything. And I can hear a little bit of the dialogue going back and forth, while he's doing this, and you hear the codes go by and whatnot. And I follow some of them. I stay pretty hip to some of the stuff, try to figure out what's going on, what they're talking about.
How long ago was this, by the way?
2 years ago. I want to say two and a half years.
Colleen says last year. I can hear her.
I worked for my last job for 2 years, so it was before that. So the tattoo shop burned down 3 years ago. So like
semi-recently.
It's recent enough to be very ingrained in my head that I have to remember that law enforcement is not your friend at a stop.
They don't care if you have a CCW. They're still going to put you on your knees.
Now, they might be looking out for their own well-being, but how are they going to handle a panicky situation? I mean,
that's exactly.
And there was a gentleman that made a comment here. His name was Andy. I think it's Andy Wells. And I'm so sorry it went so long before.
Andy's Sellers.
Oh,
Sellers,
yeah, Andy.
that's what But he had mentioned something about, prejudice. Like we can have prejudice against people, we have prejudice against cops. And yes, it sucks that a few bad apples spoil an entire bucket, but it does happen. And the problem that you run into it is this: racism is something people choose to do against somebody who can't help it. They're born that way. When you choose to be a police officer, you kind of take that scorn on your back. When you choose to be anything, it's your choice. When you choose it, when you're born something, you're
Yeah, I
born
was an
something
insurance agent. I get that.
There you go.
Everybody fucking hated me.
Lawyers get that too, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
salesmen get that stuff.
Sure.
Bikers get it. Like there's things we
Yeah.
choose in life. I chose to have tattoos all over my body, so I understand a certain degree of society is going to ostracize me. Does that make me the same equal kind of ostracizing that happens to a black person? No.
No.
But again, the second story that I have is I was on my motorcycle. I got pulled over, and the same thing happened. The officer actually removed my weapon while I had to lay face down on the concrete. And he said, if you budge, I'm pulling the trigger. I mean, that was literally told to me. Don't you move, or I'm pulling the trigger. If you budge. I'm like, all right.
Where did that happen?
It was real far south in Ohio on a late night. I can't remember where I was.
Were you
heading.
why did he pull you over? Not that that's an excuse.
I was more than likely speaking at an excessive level.
You were.
He might have been going 90 to 60.
It could have been 110. I mean, I get off.
Don't lie, you were speeding.
I mean, it's more than likely it was a speed issue. I've rarely been popped for speeding. But
it was your appearance that was.
But that was what it boiled down to. He actually had noted. He's like, I have never seen your club attire before, your colors, patches, whatever he said. He's like, I'm not familiar. And he started asking me a lot of questions. And I said, listen, man, I'm like, we just don't talk about it. I'm like, if you want to pull out your phone and get on Google, you can find anything you want about my organization because we're very transparent. We're not a secret society. And there's a lot of clubs that are like that, that keep their lip buttoned, so to speak, and they don't want anybody knowing.
Yeah. I know a lot of people from a lot of different clubs. I get it, man.
Mm-hmm. And there's a reason for that, because it's for our safety too. I mean, law enforcement has a very bad opinion about the community I run with. And I worked in tattoo shops for 17 years or so. There used to be a stigma about a guy that had tattoos. Now it's,
most of the cops have tattoos, but
and you just have to keep rolling with the way the world goes.
Chris, I understand that you have a distrust for police.
Diggs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Diggs, and that's
hi everybody. What's up, Chris? Good to see you.
Oh God,
good to see you too, man. How you been?
I'm good. Sarah, continue your point.
Anyway, yeah, you interrupt me, you rude ass bald man.
Well, some things never change.
You just keep being rude and bald. So, man, and Kara's actually has been responding. That's Kathleen. I don't know if you noticed her responding in the comments. I think the problem that we have. Look at us. Look at the four of us. Is this really even we're literally talking about something that we have no authority to even speak on.
Well, and I think we said that at the top of the show that
I know, but it's continued. Now there's more white people everywhere.
But these are just look. What else can I do? I can make observations.
Does nobody have a black friend?
Look, Diggs, you just joined, but I was actually I'm gonna wrap up the public part of this broadcast here in a second, but we'll all stick around and we can talk afterwards.
Nick,
there goes Chris.
Nick, listen, we've had actually considering the fact that we did not start until
super late
midnight, we actually had the most viewers
live of all time.
Because this is a hot button topic and a hot button issue, and
it's just weird. Everybody's talking about it right now.
By the way, I was agreeing with everything Chris, what you were saying earlier. I was listening to you guys' conversation walking up here, and I'm glad you guys are discussing the fact that one of the things that has to be done is there has to be a change in police culture about stuff like this. You got to police your own, and I was I was enjoying hearing you talk about you guys police your own. You do there needs to be more of that. In order to get community, it needs to be a thing, even to the point where of perhaps psychological evaluations that need to take place? Because let's face facts, being a police officer isn't.
I mean, that people can
look, man.
people
You got to
say whatever they want for answers on those things. I don't know.
Whatever fraternity or club or whatever you belong to. Like I belong to a club, and if like we had somebody that step out of line, I might not narc on them, but we'd take care of them, on the inside. We'd make sure that wouldn't happen again, because the reputation of, let's just say the police are a fraternity. Okay. Maybe they are, right? Like you got to protect your reputation at some point and make it easier for you to do your goddamn job. Like you don't write the laws. I get that, man. You're a police officer. You don't write the laws. You don't choose. I mean, you could choose, honestly, which ones to enforce unless you're under the scrutiny or whatever. But like, you got to police your own. You got to make sure that everybody's on the up and up. And you've got to have, you got to protect your reputation. For me personally, as a person, my reputation, most important thing I have, right?
Exactly.
So reputation is everything. I don't know how we got to that from, well, I guess it is directly related to the looting and the burning and everything.
Shit, we've been talking for an hour and 10 minutes. Obviously,
we have been, which is why we got to wrap up this public broadcast.
I know, you're so.
Let me go around the horn here.
You said we're going to do a short broadcast.
Yeah,
and now it's been the longest broadcast.
It's not been the longest.
So the
astrology was, but let's go around the horn. Okay, so that's my final thought, Sarah. Final thought.
I don't know. I'm still very torn. I agree with rioting for its purpose. I do. I agree that we should be burning down the state house or burning down the police department. Well, maybe not the police department, because we do need first responders. But I agree with violent protest, as long as it doesn't harm civilians or
harms my pocketbook when you burn down public institutions.
That's still harming people.
Right.
I don't know.
Look, I think we already talked about that.
You're hijacking me.
How do you get people woke? That's the problem. How do you make people wake up? Because there's, Colin Kaepernick taking a knee. There was already, there's already been nonviolent protests.
I know. That's how we started the show, Sarah. We covered this.
We're wrapping it up this way with these 2 extra guests. So we already did that. It didn't work. Now what?
Yeah, now what? So, Chris, now what?
Real quick, let me say something.
I'm sorry, being
I'm just gonna jump in real quick. So only thing that really pissed me off today is my mom and her husband are both Cleveland EMS. Okay, and I will tell you that they were doing nothing but trying to help people today. But these people took, I don't know what happened, but they started destroying ambulances and firefighters and the fire trucks.
Oh, you never mess with the firefighters and the ambulances.
No, and thing is, that's my mom. That's my mom on the front line. That is my mom's husband on the front line. They are there to protect you and to help you. And even they're not there to judge you. They're there to take care of you, no matter if you started something or not. So why attack the people that are there to save your life?
No, you should never.
Absolutely.
Who are the people doing the attacking? Is the more and more stuff I'm watching, and the more and more information coming out, the more and more.
We could have this discussion all goddamn night long.
Sorry.
All right. So before the rabbit trail, just to go back and answer.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I joined late. I'll let Nick go do his thing.
Okay, well, no, hold on. It's Chris's turn. He's gonna say what he wants, and then Jake's
gonna say what you want. And then we're gonna chat afterward. This isn't the end, folks. No. It's the end for everybody listening, but it's not the end for us.
It's the end of times. Go on, Chris.
So to put this into a synopsis of what I've observed over the last couple days into the last week and prior to this, people are jumping on this one specific episode and using it as the springboard. Now, again, certain things that I can deal with on a civil rights level, sure, I can relate, and I can hurt, I can bleed, I can cry for you. I understand that. But again, look at the four of us. We don't have the right to talk about someone else's struggle on a race level. So where do we take this? The reason I cited earlier what the police are doing to everyone is everyone here could potentially fall a victim of misidentification or anything else.
Not me. Not me.
You especially.
No.
You gingers are a dangerous breed. I'll tell you what.
The gingers are exempt.
But to just so I don't get too long-winded on a rabbit trail, and I do that a lot. And so when we look at it this way, when we have to come up with the common denominator of what we want done, what they want done, what we want done, what each individual of us wants to do that we can help. And if everyone is at risk, if everyone has a common, I hate to use the word enemy, but like you said, if someone aggresses you, if the cop is the bully, if the cop kills your family member, please, for the love of God, don't go and burn down the local businesses. Don't go down the center of downtown with a baseball bat and smash windows of civilians' vehicles. Don't light civilians' cars on fire. Don't kick the neighbor's dog. Don't mess with your community.
Kicking and killing horses.
They were kicking and killing horses. Horses, not
What?
dogs.
No.
What the fuck?
Oh,
Yes.
no, downtown. No, they were messing. But there's police.
Okay.
So,
Be decent people. Be
So-
decent people, everybody. Be decent fucking people.
Focus your rage.
But the real problem is again, focus the rage. Look at what's going on, because I don't think George Floyd, I don't know the guy, I'm not going to speak for him, but if it was me, please, like I said, for the love of God, don't go and destroy your community. Bond with your community. Work with the people in your local politics, your local network, and change the way you allow things to happen in your city. You can't make Donald Trump stop tweeting. You can't make a high-ranking Washington, D.C. official stop being who they are. Like them, love them, hate them, want them dead. I don't care. You can't do anything to DC yourself. You can fix your local districts and wards, your local police, your local courthouse. If people have a problem with what happened in Minneapolis, why are we destroying downtown Cleveland? Why are we burning cars in Akron? What does that have to do with this? And it's not the protesters. It's the looting, rioting people. And it's not a race, because like I said, I saw in Columbus, white people were smashing stuff and destroying things and laughing about it. This ain't about race anymore. This is about opportunistic cowards. A lot of criminals, but it's cowards. The ones that know the cops are busy, so they're going to go and do it when they can, because they'll never have another chance. This is once in a lifetime thing, man. Let's go do it. That shouldn't exist. That shouldn't exist.
Even earlier on tonight,
do your little wrap up.
To piggyback on that real quick, earlier on tonight, like there was even like I was watching footage on my way up here before I came on the air, and it was all about like they were showing like the fires in Vegas or Los Angeles, and it was almost like how did they know Los Angeles? Yeah, how do they know like. It's just there's weird shit. It's like there are peaceful protesters and there are people out there with their own agendas that
Two different people
that I called an anarchist with a capital A because I was leading a sentence, and Nico came quick to Facebook to correct me on that. And we can talk off there about whatever verbiage I was supposed to use instead of that. But,
someone's getting paid to instigate, though. I agree.
There's too much, and that's a benefit of social media. There's a lot of things, especially like through Twitter and whatnot, where you're seeing stuff and you're like, this doesn't make any sense. Why there's and it's not conspiracy bullshit. Right. It's like just stuff that's going on that it's like, okay, there are people that are out there who are protesting this as they rightfully should, and everybody should be pissed off about what happened. We all saw it, and we need to hold our law enforcement who you protect and serve the community. And I agree with Nick. Your brother is one of them. Well, I mean, I'm very pro police, but at the same time, it's like they need to hold an accountability for this.
Yeah.
For this to happen, I'm not anti-police, and I have tons of police officers friends that are police officers, and they need to. Even that's going to make people hate me and you, but
I'm gonna. Let's railroad the whole conversation. Okay.
I actually really think we should get a police officer on the show. To be honest,
we need to, and we will do that next time. We will do this next time because you know what? I'm off Friday, so Friday we will work this out.
Yeah, we will.
I know you want to do a little send off. Let's wrap it up. Mama's going to do a send off. Hey, guess what? Thank you for joining in. this was the most actually exciting show that I've been a part of, honestly, because we weren't talking about the damn pandemic. So
yeah, isn't it?
Actually,
it's a great change of
this was
Hey,
a
no
great
more
change
social
of subject.
distancing, apparently.
It
Look,
was awesome.
I think
I love
cut off.
all of you, and now we are actually going to go
yeah,
on live.
we're gonna wrap it up. We're gonna go to the after show. But again, thank you for everybody who watched. This was supposed to be a short show. We're in like hour and however
This
long.
was like the
Show number 21. I think what we learned today is a lot of stuff, but number one, community. Respect other people, be decent, and all these problems would fucking go away. Good night, everybody, or good morning, really. And we're gonna end it now. Thanks for watching.
And I'm going to send George